Welcome to Going In Blind. I'm your host, Zach Tidwell, and we have a little different episode this week. We're going to cover some stuff I guess I've covered in parallel a little bit with some clinicians. Going to be talking about some psychedelic experiences, but this is instead of being in a traditional clinical setting. FieldGuide9 is a nonprofit that leads guided ayahuasca experiences with a spiritual component to them. And today we will be speaking with one of their co-founders, Beth Kromer. Very interesting path. They're also rooted in the US where a lot of the stuff is, there's some hoops that have to be jumped through to make all this stuff happen. And I think we're starting to see a shift in the country towards opening doors for some of this stuff. So I'm very excited to get into all of this because these things are having very defined outcomes and meaningful outcomes in the research that is starting to be done on them. But before we get into all of that, just a couple of quick announcements as usual. For those of you who are new to the show, there's a very powerful story behind this podcast and trying to get some of this information and other people's stories out into the world. If you'd like to read about that, you can head over to my website at zacktidwell.com. And if you're taken by anything that you read there, you can also reach out to me for speaking engagements and join my mailing list to get updates on two big projects that I have going on behind the scenes. If you've been listening for a while, please leave a rating and review wherever that is. Or if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel and share this thing around, regardless of wherever you're getting the show. That helps keep growing and attracting these incredible guests that I've been so fortunate to speak with so far. But speaking of incredible guests, Miss Beth Kromer, thanks for coming on.
You are so welcome. It's my pleasure.
Yeah, this is almost, it's such a loaded topic that I almost don't even I don't know where to jump in. So we'll start with a simple one here. What's the namesake behind FieldGuide9?
Okay, we do get asked that quite a bit. The FieldGuide9 is the genesis of it is that what we do is bringing the knowledge and wisdom of ayahuasca to the United States from the Shipibo tribe and lineage. The medicine comes from that. So our co-founder, and everybody that works with us is considered guides. We're not shamans. They're not shamans. They go to the field. They go to the source. And so field guide. And then 9 is the last number before ascension. It's super spiritual. It has a lot of meaning in lots of different faiths. And FieldGuide9 is easy to remember, and FieldGuide9.com was available. And then
That's always key in the process. Yeah.
and from a business perspective, it's super important. And we can also shorten it to FG9. So part of it is it means something to us, and part of it is exactly what you said. People can remember it.
Well, it's because when I first saw it, like when I found you and started digging in, I was like, all right, psychedelics, they're doing like Cloud9, they're trying to give a message, but yeah. And it's funny hearing your kind of thought process on it too, because your background is more conventional and corporate, correct?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, I have worked for corporate startups. I've worked for and helped found non-for-profits, and yeah, it's people sometimes pick this is
Hang on, Beth.
this. Yep.
Hang on. Sorry, I lost you for like 10 seconds there.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Well, I guess if you can go back about 10 seconds, I guess. And sorry, if we keep having issues though, we'll have to reschedule. Yeah.
Because I just looked at my Wi-Fi. It's 4 bars, but gosh, you never know. Okay, so I have worked for not-for-profits, business startups, and what I talk to people about with business, which is part of what we're doing, is it's really important to meet people so that they can understand what you're doing without it being complicated to find you or a complicated name.
Well, and I guess that's actually a great place to interject. I think people that are, I guess, averse to or against psychedelic experiences, whether that be in a clinical setting or in a spiritual setting like this, or just, people seeing where their consciousness goes. I think it's important to outline ayahuasca is not a recreational drug. So if you are still here, I'm guessing like you might have been on the cusp of tuning out, knowing that we're going to be talking about psychedelics. But I think that's an important thing to convey here. And so, how do you do that in your own, I guess, in your own world, trying to convey and promote your guys' work?
Sure. So first and foremost, we don't even call what we do psychedelics. We call it plant medicine.
Okay.
And it's the opposite of addiction. Many people that come to us have had addictions in their past. And we have a lot of medical providers, doctors, nurses, nurse practitioners come to us because the ayahuasca in particular is the opposite of anything anybody would be addicted to. It is deeply healing, it's profound, it's challenging. There can be moments, there can be time at which it's blissful, uh, feels wonderful, but I would say the majority of the time is difficult, challenging healing. It is bringing up things that we have stored within inside ourselves, whether it be trauma, injury, whatnot. And that in particular is something that, of course, people are drawn to because it's highly effective, but it's not because it's some out of this world psychedelic exciting, happy experience. It's profound, it's meaningful, it can leave us it will leave us in places that are growthful with a lot of neuroplasticity. But I think that what we're seeing is it's healing. That is always what it has been. And healing is not necessarily easy.
Yeah. Do you? Yeah. So I've struggled with addiction myself. I
Yes.
for years really had a hard time kicking alcoholism, and I just ended up finally, things clicked. I filled the voids that I had been running away from with my addiction, and just, I found my way out. Everyone has their own path out, but I'm curious because I don't feel like these medicines were being discussed so much a couple years ago when I was really in the heart of my addiction. And so, but I being in that desperate mind state that I was in of just I cannot get my shit together in terms of and I can't string together more than 2 or 3 days of sobriety. I could see had this been talked about more at the time, have been something that I latched onto as obviously an incredible source of hope, but also maybe a shortcut to doing the work. Do you guys encounter that at all? Is that to the extent that is it a trend where you get people because of the deep places that it does take you? And I've never done it before. I've just the people that I've spoken with, like even with you, have always highlighted like it will take you places, and it can be overwhelming and very challenging, as you said. But go ahead.
Yeah, so there's a lot there. So if I could try to unpack it, first and foremost, people, the research shows, I deeply believe that people are not addicted, but that is a void that you were talking about. There's trauma, there's pain, there's injury. And what we're trying to do with substances is numb it so that we can somehow survive. So a person who's looking to or uses alcohol and has alcohol use disorder, it's I think it's better for us to look at this as something they're trying to do to help themselves. It's not some something awful or terrible, but it's the same with other things. It could be any type of addiction, soft and hard, that we might have. And the question might be, are we moving away from what is in our core by numbing ourselves, or do we go in to try to heal? So anybody that comes to ayahuasca that has had an addiction is basically going to go into what it was that is the genesis, the beginning of that pain. So the concept is that things happen to us, and we can either process it in the moment and feel it deeply and are supported with that, or we store it, we push it down, and it's trauma. And until we can start going to that injury, that pain, that early wounding, it stays with us, and we try to treat the symptoms of depression, anxiety, OCD, suicidal ideation. Those are all parts of us that are trying to help us, but ineffectual. So the concept that's coming out now with all the research is the body keeps the score. And Zach, I did read about your story and precisely the things that you were facing, the feeling of isolation, rejection, some turning to substances. Those are all the things that people come to us with, whether they're super high functioning or just scraping by. It's a universal condition that we all struggle with. And ayahuasca and other plant medicines are particularly helpful in helping us turn to that and heal.
And that's where what I'm trying to get at, I guess, is because that work needs to be done, right? Like the what has
Yes.
gotten the person to that point, there's something that needs to be worked on. And if it is not worked on, it will resurface at some point. So is that when are you working with people on a repetitive basis? Because, or is it the idea that on this journey that they are addressing those things internally as they experience where the plant takes them on?
Sure. So what happens with something, if you sit with ayahuasca and people come to us with traumatic brain injury, concussions, drug usage, which have done something to the chemicals in their brains, even if they have stopped using, ayahuasca is known as healing. So it's as we drink the medicine, as the space is held, as the ikros, which are songs that are sung to participants, help move energy, this stickiness of things like cannabis, alcohol, the stickiness starts to get lifted. It's the whole concept that the body keeps the score, and we need to release things, not suppress things. After that happens, and we always said 3 nights for the ceremonial weekends, then people start getting to some more core wounds. Like, why did this happen? Why did people turn to alcohol? What happened? And what's the limiting belief that has come up? I don't belong. I'm not good enough. I'm not safe. So something happened before that. We aren't born this way. So we help people start unpacking and getting to a much deeper place of what happened to each of us. And can we go back to that 5-year-old, that 6-year-old, that 7-year-old, and start parenting that part of us that didn't get what was needed at that time. And so therefore, we start to see, for example, we've always been good enough. We've always been loved. We've always been safe. It's when we can feel that deeply. And that's why it's such a spiritual practice, because you don't talk yourself into it. You don't read yourself into it. It's come to a place where it's felt deeply. And ayahuasca, for example, has DMT, which is the spirit molecule, where really helps us understand at a deep somatic level how connected we are.
Yeah, and I know, so I've done psilocybin before. And so I know, when you're going to take mushrooms, the idea is, you're in a good headspace, you're in a good physical space, you're with people that you enjoy being around and that you trust when you're with people. And you're right, you're setting the scene for everything. That's a much less potent plant medicine. So with you guys having multiple days, I mean, what is in terms of your staff that you have there supporting that and the environment that you guys are setting up over the course of these 3 days in terms of to be able to facilitate all this, what does that look like?
Sure. So first and foremost, as you had mentioned, we're not for profit. We have a religious designation, but the whole point of Field Guide 9 is that we wanted to provide a sentence setting that closely aligns to if you go to the jungle of the Amazon in Peru. So the medicine is exactly the same. Ayahuasca is brewed in the jungle. The practitioners that we use come from a lineage, a center. They've trained for years at a place that's called Niue Rao. They will be from the United States or from Canada, and they actually have sat hundreds of ceremonies, and our practitioners sing and conduct the entire ceremony in Shipibo. So they're singing the ancient songs to each person, energetically customized to that person. And it's an energetic exchange. It's co-created between the practitioner, the plant medicine, the participant. We only have 6 participants. We have 2 practitioners at every ceremony weekend. So our ratio is super small.
Yeah.
And we want it that way so that people are deeply supported. And then I'm also at the weekends. I am not trained to be a practitioner. I don't do that. I help support people before, after, and 6 weeks of integration after the ceremony. Plus, we always have a past participant who helps at the weekends. So we have 4 support personnel to 6 participants, which is it's our model. We want
Yeah.
people to feel safe, not just feel safe, they're held, they're protected, they're seen. It's done in a very deep way. And those 6 people become incredibly tight because they've gone through the whole thing together. They're, it's a sense of being seen in all the permutations of the weekend.
It's honestly, it's funny because I saw my dad this morning and told him
Mm.
you were coming on, and I told him, a little bit about what you guys do. And he was like, have you ever thought about trying that? And I told him, not like it's something that I've thought of for if I by some unlucky circumstance end up back in my addiction. And I'd never thought about it for any of these other circumstances that you're talking about.
Sure.
And it's hitting a little different hearing you talk about it. I'm like, man, okay,
So,
maybe I do.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, Zach, we don't work with people who have active addictions. People have to be off of it. And I could talk a lot about if a person has an active addiction, there are other plant medicines that are super helpful for that. I can talk about that. We have veterans. We have many veterans who come to us because it's the trauma that they carry, the pain. It's what they are carrying. We can stop drinking, we can stop using recreational substances, and we can do it beautifully, strongly. That's as far as I'm concerned, where the work begins. It gives us the space to say, with kindness and compassion, what was behind that? How did I get to this point? So if a person, for example, has suicidal ideation or even attempts to commit suicide, it's a part that strangely is trying to protect you in some way, to say, if I can get through another day because I can stop things. We absolutely do not want people to commit suicide, but we also don't want people to hate that part of them. It's to, how do we look at that with compassion, love, and understanding? So in Zach, in your instance, there's I don't know what came before, but many things for all of us have come before. At some point in our lives, we were told things that weren't true, like we're not good enough, or we're not lovable, or we don't belong. And we internalize them. And until we work through that, we look for things exogenous to us to try to fill those holes. And it's a poor facsimile to true healing. So,
Well, and that's what I was saying with this, like hearing you talk about why you guys do what you do, and a lot of the cause behind people seeking you out being more so on that internal level of where you're at as a person is why it started to hit more. You know, I've been in a good place and a fine place with my suicide attempt for a long time. Obviously, I still have stuff that I struggle with, and that's where like some of the things that you're saying, you know, like I would say the belonging, the isolation, and probably some I've realized the feeling of not being good enough, I think are things that I still toil with, even though those aren't, I guess, were probably peripheral contributors to shooting myself. You know, there were bigger things on the table, but I'm sure, you know, some of that was still there, and I'm realizing it is still there today. So it's just, yeah, I didn't expect that to be a big part of your guys' work. And it's,
yeah. So
yes.
Zach, if I could go just a tiny bit deeper, I'll just use myself as an example. So I had a highly dysfunctional childhood. With my dad was an alcoholic, and there was mental illness in my family. They were very, very poor. I felt there was a deep um, control with religion that was punishing. And all of my life, I tried to get the right education. I tried to look the right way. I tried to get the right job. I was highly successful in a corporate life. And I went through therapy. I read all the books. I got a postgraduate work in coaching, actually coaching people. And I thought I won the game. Like, I could cope and work with my trauma and be incredibly high functioning. And I thought that that was the highest level that I could achieve, that I can
Mhm.
manage my pain. And I could have ways to meditate, to eat right, to exercise, to not drink, that would help me. And it all did, except until I was 57 years old and sat with ayahuasca and had the very first experience of what would it be like if I simply wasn't carrying the trauma. Completely different equation. I was not broken. I had, like, in all intents and purposes, people are like, what are you doing? Like, yeah, I could just retire. Like you, I ski, I hike, I bike, I have a good life. But it was on top of lots of baggage. And I can
Yeah.
say now, I can think about my childhood, I can think about my father, but I don't carry his pain. He was a vet of Korea, 8 years of combat. his pain was my pain until I could put it down. And it just wasn't possible for me to do that alone. I could cope highly, but the difference between carrying something effectively and putting it down is night and day. That's
Yeah.
why this is what I focus on now. Because I said when I was 57, our youngest person is 22. Our oldest person has been 85. Every single person tells us, I wish I did it sooner.
When there's
So,
something to it too, I think. No, I've heard these medicines talked about a lot, and I think the knowing that you're going in there, like you're going into this specifically with the intent of addressing whatever, whatever for you, it sounds like you had quite a bit that you decided you wanted to address. I think there's something, even just recognizing that, and that you're going to open yourself up to and willingly subject yourself to it. I think there's something powerful is like too basic of a word about it. It's like
well,
it's
yeah.
like very yeah, you go ahead.
So Zach, the thing is you're a highly dramatic example of what we all face. We face pain, deep existential pain. We try to numb it. We try to work around it. Things trigger us. It can be the loss of a job. It can be the loss of friendships. It can be the loss of a spouse. It can be betrayal. It can be anything. And this deep core of pain and hurt bubbles up. And the question that I have, because I've spoken to hundreds of people who've sat with us, is truly a blessing in my life because it's so satisfying. And it's also hard work. It's terrifying to face those deepest wounds we've ever had. It doesn't mean our parents were terrible. It doesn't mean that something horrific happened to us, although we work with lots of people who that is part of their childhood. It's that it's time for us to put down that which is not serving us. We don't even realize how much we're carrying until it's gone. Psilocybin is utterly beautiful. It was my first foray when I was 55, the first time I ever did anything, any psychedelic. I didn't even use cannabis. I was not your profile. But psilocybin showed me how much more that was possible. And ayahuasca showed me how much I was carrying, how much I could put down. And then by putting it down, how much more space I had to live this life fully without the pain, the trauma, my own, my parents' societies.
What was it at 55? Did you go into IHOP for your first early bird special and you're like, man, I
So,
got some work to do?
yeah. Well, I gave up therapy because every single time I talked to a therapist, it could feel good, but I felt like I was entertaining. I have
Hmm.
a super entertaining story. My childhood is one of those things people are like, really, that happened? But I could tell the story really well. It felt to me by the time I was 55, I had everything that I thought was supposed to make me just have the most beautiful life ever. I have a son. I have a long-term marriage. I have had lots of education. I was no longer in poverty. When I grew up, I was homeless sometimes with my family. And all of that was taken care of, Zach. And then what? I still had dread and fear. I completely lost any faith. I was an atheist. And I'm like, is this it? It's classic. Zach is utterly classic of
Mhm.
hitting all of my goals. And I read Michael Pollan's book, How to Lose Your Mind, I think that's the name of it. And I thought, this is not drugs. These are plants. They've been around for thousands of years. They could even be what informed early faith, like Christianity. There's so much research in it. At that point, study after study after study was coming out about how things like SSRIs, namas, the plant medicine helps cure us. And I thought, what the hell? I'll try it. And I happened to have stumbled upon someone who had done it for many years in a small group, psilocybin. I had an utterly transformative experience, and nobody was around afterwards. There's 10 people that went. It was during the pandemic. I was one of the people that was like, I don't like doing work over Zoom. I'm drawn to people. But anyhow, it became super clear to me that yes, plant medicines are incredibly powerful, transformative. We have neuroplasticity. It can help so many deep-seated problems, but not in isolation. We need to do pre-work. We need to have deep integration. And at that point, I came right back to my faith, and which startled me. And I felt, well, I've done all the things except dedicate myself to a non-for-profit that truly helps people transform. That's what I've been doing since then.
Was your faith different than it was before? Was it
Completely.
okay?
Go
How
ahead.
so?
Completely different. I was raised in a very strict, harsh religion that didn't believe in medical care, didn't believe in celebrations. But I was told from a very early age that I was born in sin and that if I did something wrong, I would go to hell. So that was,
Fear is always a good way to lead
yeah.
people. Yeah, yeah.
So as a little girl at 5, if I did something wrong, I was like, oh no, God's gonna kill me. But then I was like, but I don't believe in God. I refuse to believe in God. And then I thought, but God's gonna come and punish me because I don't believe in him. Illogical, but okay. So then as I got older, I rejected all of that and said, this universe has nothing to do with God. It's random, and at best, it's neutral. It's not out to get me, but it's also not out to help me. As soon as I came back, or I sat with psilocybin and even more so with ayahuasca, Zach, the whole thing changed. I thought, there's no way there isn't an intelligent design. And my deep-seated belief now is that things are working for us, not against us. It took so much for each of us to get here. It's a miracle. Like even how my body works. I don't know how my liver works, but it does. Everything is so different from my perspective now. And so I see the world, the universe, God, other people in a completely different light. So, yes.
So, do you think, the age-old question, I guess, how do you think things are happening for a reason? Do you think we're just here to experience in whatever capacity that is? Do you have thoughts on that? Because it sounds like it's hard I feel like once you get to that place of having that spirituality rooted around the universe, which is an incomprehensible thing, then it gets real. It's interesting to hear how people interpret that.
So it's sure, it's ineffable. They can't be really explained with words. As soon as we start to try to explain these experiences and our deep knowing, it's like we try to explain tree with the word tree, and it doesn't
Yeah.
explain it. But this is where I came to, Zach, is during an ayahuasca ceremony, and I've only sat maybe 12, which is considered small, but to me it's significant. Each one have been incredibly significant. I came with a deep understanding of knowing that we are team humanity or biology. We have common DNA. Our DNA is so complex. The earth, everything that's alive has DNA in it, which we don't even understand. It's the most intricate, intelligent design that we all share with plants, with animals, with each other. I feel deeply that we're here for, and it might sound corny, like we're team biology, team human.
Or an
We're all
organism.
connected. Yes, we're all connected. So I find it super interesting for me that exactly as I have come to this, all I see is the growth of artificial intelligence. And I think this is the counterbalance to that. I can't fully explain it, Zach, except there's a reason I'm here, there's a reason you're here. And that it's our purpose, our meaning to live into it fully.
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. A couple things stick out to me. I think anytime someone mentions they're an atheist, I'm like, how do you know? How cocky is that to say that you know that there's nothing, right? Agnostic is
Yes.
very different from being atheist. From you literally saying there is nothing. But I used to have that view too. I was raised to just general like Christian beliefs, not super religious or anything like that, but praying at night, praying at dinner, stuff like that. And then when I got baptized when I was getting trained to be a machine gunner in the Marines, because I was like, if I die, I don't want to go to hell. And then, as I formed my own beliefs, I became an atheist in that, those cocky years, and then have since reached the point of being agnostic. And it's always, I like getting an insight into how the gears turn in people's minds. And so that's why I asked with you. I mean, obviously you had several very opening experiences, it seemed like, but getting to how people are able to articulate, especially when that scope is expanded or their view is more personal on that level that is outside of the structures that are portrayed to you in a conventional religion. Not that there's anything wrong with those. I just think like what you've expressed points more towards independent thinking as opposed to I'm consuming the gospel and just going in line with everyone else. So I like seeing how people's brains work. So
Yeah, just to go a tad deeper with that, thank you, is it used to be very early Christianity, and perhaps almost all of the major religions were very deep personal relationships with God's source or intelligent design. The formation of religion put an intermediary between us and source. I'm not critical. It just became organizations. And what we sit with something like ayahuasca, that deep, direct connection becomes front and center. We've had people who are Jewish, who are Hindu, who are Baptist, whomever, who sit with us Mormon, and it only deepens their faith. And I think a really fun statistic is I was like, this is so great. 67% of atheists, people who say they're atheists who sit with ayahuasca, are no longer atheists after. I love that. I don't know what they
yeah,
believe, but they believe in something,
just not that, or just believe that there's not nothing at the very
right?
least. Yeah.
Or they know. It's not even a belief. They know that there's not nothing.
Yeah. I don't, I had a, I totally forgot about this until the last couple sentences you just said, because I was traveling quite a bit. So I built up like several months of episodes and have been kind of letting that buffer build out. But
Mhm.
so it's been probably 3 or 4 months since I talked with, her name is Dr. Betty Kovach. And she has done a lot of work in examining some of these ancient texts. And again, it's been, had I expected the conversation to
Mm,
go here, I would have refreshed myself on her credentials. But basically, she her research was rooted in kind of studying ancient texts, and then she ended up going down into Central America and having all sorts of experiences with these different plant medicines, and that had been like fundamentally life changing for her. If I
mhm.
remember correctly, some of it, I don't remember if her son had committed suicide, but she had lost a son and she was revisited by him. She had just, that was like her first experience, and like it changed the direction of her life. And but as we were, she talks about all this stuff now, and specifically in the context of now, or relating to now this, we're starting to see the rise, or the more, at least increased acceptance of these medicines and being kind of brought into the zeitgeist now in 2026 and over the past 2 or 3 years. But that this knowledge has been known for a long. We've known how powerful these plants were, and all of this was actually removed from the religious canon by some rabbis, a couple thousand years ago, back in the day. So like it's weird. It just, when you start talking into the idea of things happening for a reason, whether people buy into that or not, like just entertaining that idea and the possibility that things do, and the way that things seem to come in cycles, or in this, pendulum swinging back and forth of now this stuff is starting to make its entry back into society, or at least in, the more modern societies. Obviously, these things have been around in more smaller communities, obviously throughout time, but which is, how medicines from the Amazon have made it up to where you guys are operating at and continues to. But it's just, I don't know. We start talking about these big open subjects like this, and my mind just gets going,
Yeah.
where it's hard not to run in circles with it. But it's just
Yeah.
so.
Zach, you've brought up like several huge topics. I probably will just tag it to saying all of the core religions have a foundation in mysticism
Mhm.
and personal relationship with source. That becomes incredibly clear when we look at things like the Gnostic Gospels, which were suppressed until recently, which very, very much talks about the female aspect of source and our personal relationship. So I feel I should say a few things. First of all, ayahuasca is considered female grandmother, which I personally love. The second component is that the Shipibo in Peru, in the Amazon, are considered perhaps those that have the deepest history and deepest ability for healing. So the Shipibo methodology of ayahuasca is a deep monastic study of the plants, not just ayahuasca, but any number of plants in the Amazon, what they can teach us, what they can heal in us, and their mission in life, these practitioners, is to help people become healthier. They're called cures. And so it's again a co-creation of the plant, the participant, and the medicine. And it's sung to. So it's incredibly interesting, Zach, that when we sit, like for example, when I sit with ayahuasca and the practitioner starts to sing the ikro to me, I literally can feel that which I've been holding, that injury. We've had people with traumatic brain injury that can feel it lift from their brains.
Mm.
That was the purpose of this, and what's incredible about the Shipibo is because they didn't have a written language. They weren't colonized. They have passed down from generation to generation the ikros, the tradition, and part of FieldGuide9, huge part of us, aside from combining deep Western wisdom on how to support people in trauma and talking things through afterwards, is that the Shipibo have very distinct and powerful methodology to work with the medicine. And so we honor that. We respect it. I talk to a lot of people who are thinking that they're going to sit with ayahuasca with someone who went to the jungle for 2 weeks and will give it to them. And I pretty much advise people don't do that. It's super powerful. It's super strong. It's incredibly safe, but you're opening up some ancient wisdom, if you will. And if you truly want to honor where that came from and get the benefit of it, why wouldn't we deeply respect the indigenous practices? We're blessed that they kept them. The problem with psilocybin that I have is it's not necessarily healing to the same extent, and research shows that, but it's not a problem. It's that we've lost the traditions of how to work with psilocybin. Generally, people are putting on a face mask and a head and some soundtrack. That's okay, but that wasn't the beginning of psilocybin wisdom. Unfortunately, it's been lost.
Yeah, and it's like I'm curious as but this is another use for AI, these large language models being as they grow stronger and stronger, being able to try and go back and translate some of these texts that we have that are lost languages and stuff. I wonder if some of that stuff will resurface. It's,
Right.
I mean, even like you talk about Peru and the Shipibo down in Peru. Do you know who Graham Hancock is? Have you heard of?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
I've been
Very much
reading.
so.
Yeah, I've been reading Fingerprints of the Gods.
Mhm.
It really seems like from the case that he has presented that at least the most ancient civilizations that we have proof of go back to Peru. And there's outside of I think it was Tiwanaku, they found there's these stone pillars arranged in a certain way that are celestially aligned with the equinoxes, but to do as things shift over time, they've since fallen out of alignment. But if someone did the math to figure out when those would have been aligned with the equinoxes, because they do line up, it's like 15,000 years ago. And they had that knowledge of the stars. And so for those people, again, this is Peru. The Shipibo are from Peru. That
Mhm.
literally is ancient knowledge that goes past what we have of recorded history. And then when they got colonized, I mean, that was during the Inquisitions, like the Spanish totally eradicated and destroyed all of
Right.
their physical manifestations of knowledge and their star charts and all of their written things. I mean, everything was just scorched. So and as they continue to dig out some of these older pyramids that we're continuing to find down there, like I think we probably will unearth some of that stuff and some of that
Yeah.
knowledge.
Yeah. And that's why I think it's so incredible, or I feel incredibly grateful to the people, is precisely because they had an oral tradition and deeply respected the curing nature of all of this. We have that. Perhaps we're going to get more back, but I would highly recommend reading the book Cosmic Serpent, which uh, we could probably put in the notes. We recommend that to most people who are coming to us. There's a number of books that we recommend or shows or things, but Cosmic Serpent talks about quite a bit. A biologist who went to Peru with no belief that any of this worked and left with deep, deep belief. And that's what's fascinating. We think we have answers. We think we understand things. But as I say, with all of our pharmacological solutions, there's only 2 or 3 things that actually cure anything. Penicillin is one of them. Everything else that we're taking just addresses symptoms. And if we pause and think about that, everything that we take is addressing symptoms, SSRIs, any of these things.
Yeah.
What is the answer as we go deeper and really try to address that which causes the symptoms?
Yeah. Well, and I think that same, our pharmaceutical industry, I think is, I'm sure in a lot of that stuff begins as obviously you're trying to do the best you can. All we can do right now is treat the symptom. But I do think over time that business has warped to where they trend towards a subscription-based model, i.e.,
Yes.
treating the symptoms and not the cause, because then you're not making money off of someone. And so I feel like that's why a lot of these medicines are still illegal, but it's, even like the VA is starting to back studies behind some of
Mhm.
these things, which is so big. What is it? Richard Perry, the former governor of
Yes.
Texas, is like a huge proponent of Ibogaine now. Like
Mhm.
it is happening. And so if we continue having conversations like this, I think it'll get it into the public's
Right.
awareness enough to start making these changes and actually
Right.
start addressing the cause like you're trying to do.
Right. If I could just say that, I have heard former Governor Perry speak, and I love it because we all want the same thing. We want people to be healed. We want our children, our parents, our spouses, everyone to have a better life ourselves. And that crosses over any type of conservative or liberal, Democratic, or Republican. And when the suicide rate is so incredibly high among veterans, when our kids that are in high school, the majority of them not only are suicidal, but they have an active plan, when our prescriptions of SSRIs are skyrocketing, but so is our depression, we have a collective call.
Yeah.
And when there are substances that there's no known lethal dose of ayahuasca or psilocybin, yet there's actual benefit that it's been researched over and over and over again now with Iboga or Ibogaine that you're talking about. For people with active addictions, extreme PTSD, the success rate is unbelievable. And you do it once, perhaps twice, as opposed to a pharmaceutical model that you're going to take an SSR every day for how long? For the rest of your
Forever.
life?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, some of that's honestly, I've been off of antidepressants for a while now. Took a couple tries getting off, and there were the lulls after. But my psychologist like tried pushing me, tried urging me not to try getting off of them because it had gone so bad the first time. Like, hey, some people have to be on these their entire life, and I was like, I think you're doing a disservice telling people that. I do. It's sad, but even, you did make a good point though, even talking about with ayahuasca, like it is a medicine. It is, but any medicine is not a cure for something. There's other work that needs to be done alongside that. Right.
Yes,
Yeah.
that is a huge point of FieldGuide9. I have seen nothing short but miraculous insight, willingness to see, to unearth, to move forward, to have compassion for ourselves and for others. Yet ayahuasca, as profound as it is the beginning. It is. The ceremony is not the thing. The ceremony done right will give us such hope and expansion and neuroplasticity for at least 8 weeks, meaning that we can do things differently. We will shift in the ceremony, but every system we've created, every person that's in our life has not. So we go right back to our work, our families, our systems. And that's why we're so incredibly focused with people who sit with us to really say, how do we take this gift, this opportunity, this amazing insight, and really start constructing our lives differently. It doesn't mean that we need to quit our jobs, leave our families, or anything like that. It's absolutely the opposite. How do we start living our lives fully, honestly, and with gratitude and love?
So when you've had a group come in and they've completed the 3 days, is that on the back end? Is this something, or I guess is part of that work that you do prepping them for all of that? Or their follow-ups? How does all of
Sure.
that work?
Sure. So, as I said, we only have up to 6 people in any ceremony. We talk to, and by the way, I think, Zach, you know this, my adult son, Ben, and it's a co-founder of FieldGuide9, and his focus is much more the medicine and the practitioners because he has started that journey himself.
Mhm.
But we talk to each participant at least 3 times before they come. The first is screening, just to see where the person's at. And there are, like I said, active addictions we can't work with. The people have pretty significant mental illness like schizophrenia. It's not recommended. And we also talk to people that they would have to be off of a psychotropic like an SSRI because that blunts the experience. Then we
Mhm.
talk about twice what they want to work on, what's happening in their lives. And then the cohort comes in usually Wednesday night. We have a beautiful location. People have rooms, beds, suites. We are 14 acres. And the the whole thing starts Thursday morning at about 10 a.m. with great food that we make. And we really start, that's the first time the small group gets to meet each other. Sometimes people come with a spouse, parent, child, adult, uh, siblings, and we do a lot of conversation. We do breath work. We do contrast therapy because we have an ice bath, a sauna, a hot tub. And these ceremonies start when it gets dark. They're very quiet, except for the singing. And then they last for about 4 to 5 hours. We talk a lot. The next day, we go through the whole thing. So we have 3 or 4 days of this deep,
Wow.
deep experience in a beautiful location with peace. It's dark skies, so you can see the Milky Way. You can hear frogs. You can hear coyotes. It's only an hour from San Francisco, but it feels completely different. Then we close up about noon on Sunday. Mostly people don't want to leave because it's such a tight, warm, uh, health experience. But then in the next day, the very next day on Zoom, we start integration and we have 1 to 2 hour calls every week for 6 weeks. And we've had anesthesiologists, we've had people that are top executives at tech companies, and we've had people who are retired or house or stay-at-home moms. They all make every integration call. We work with the schedules, but we've had people change their lives so that they can come to the calls. And it's so beautiful. That's where this really comes to life because people are actually putting into place and are seen and supported. And then after that, we have free weekly calls forever for anybody who's ever sat with us, which are super popular.
Wow.
And because we have, as you might imagine, people who've sat with us deeply care about each other, regardless if it was in their ceremony or not. So that's how
Mhm.
that works.
Well, there's almost this underlying bonding, even though they haven't been through the same cohort of, hey, we've been through this together. It's the
Yeah.
camaraderie of it.
Yeah. And we never talk politics. And I, for one, know we have extremely liberal and extremely conservative people that sit with each other and they just fall in love. But so when they come to a call, it's where we can be real, we can be authentic. You can say, this one gentleman in San Francisco told us that he knew that ayahuasca really changed him because he went to a speed dating event and he was rejected 3 times and went home. And he said he just thanked God that he was saved from bad relationships. And I thought that was so funny because he didn't take it on as there's something wrong with me. He was grateful.
Yeah. Perspective goes so far in life. And obviously that's, I mean, that's an, I'm guessing before experiencing ayahuasca, he probably wouldn't have had that take because most
No,
people wouldn't have that perspective after that. That would
no,
hurt. Like,
no, that's what he said
yeah,
before. It would take him weeks to become off of that devastation. And
yeah.
he literally told the story and then burst out in laughter and how grateful he was. And I love that.
That's
So
awesome. And like, I mean, seeing those shifts in people, because I mean, you mentioned you've seen hundreds of people come through now. And how
mhm.
long have you guys, those are small cohorts. So how long have you guys been in operation now?
So 3 years pretty much exclusively with ayahuasca, and about 2 years before that, where we had psilocybin and ayahuasca, different ceremonies. And quite frankly, we shifted almost exclusively to ayahuasca because the healing is so profound. And
Mm.
people tell us it's who've done both, that's what it really makes a difference in their lives. So
Yeah. Do you think, I mean, it sounds like you guys have really found your way with this and the way to do it right and have obviously as a profound impact on people's lives. So is the plan to stick with ayahuasca? Like this is our bread and
yes.
butter. Okay.
Yes, we feel as if we're an incubator, Zach, of best practices. We have
Mm.
any number of people who come through who are therapists or want to be practitioners themselves. Sometimes ayahuasca, but mostly psilocybin, because what we do with our small groups before, during, and after is super unique. So we use internal family systems uh, as a methodology to understand our parts work. I'm very big in a Jungian perspective, and we do things in such a way now with groups that it really does work effectively. And the power of what's happening in word of mouth is incredibly strong.
Yeah. And I know you guys have a blog and I tried getting on there, but I couldn't access it with my screen reading
Mm.
software. So are you publishing? I mean, you mentioned being an incubator. Is this stuff getting posted there?
Yeah, so Zach, I just had someone say, can't you put your blog in a place where it can be read audio? And so we're on Substack now. I've just
Mm.
moved. So our last 6 blogs you can listen to on Substack. And because I've been writing the blogs for 3.5 years, I'm going to move them all over. Uh, yes, I highly recommend that people read the blogs. We have a few thousand people who just get our blog
Yeah.
now.
That's the text format actually works fine. It's the for whatever the cookie banner that pops up, it's a it's whoever programmed that part of the website. Like the text format is actually accessible, but for whatever reason I couldn't get past that. But that's good to know. I'll have to because I was trying to prep for this and just wasn't able to dig into that stuff. But
Well, that's terrible. I can blame GoDaddy. That's the
oh, that is yeah.
platform.
Yeah. That'll be it. Any of like the commercial web designers like that, all their stuff
Right.
is broken. So,
Yeah.
um, But what else looking forward here are you, so you guys have I guess before we even dig into that, I wanted to come back to, because I know we got to talk about it a little bit offline, being that you guys are, it sounds like intentionally trying to almost serve as a proof of concept almost for other people to be able to do this. This is a gray area. Ayahuasca is not a legal substance in the United States. And I know you guys have your PMA status as opposed to a typical 501c3 status. So can you maybe talk through some of the challenges of trying to establish and run an organization that's running in that gray area, and then how you've been able to achieve that and stay above boards? Because
Sure,
someone listening is probably going to be taken by what you've done and maybe want to
sure.
follow.
Yeah, Zach, when we first started doing this, lots of people would ask if I would help them establish the same protocol, and I have done it for some people. I believe in having a PMA, a private membership association or ministerial association, is in this might get a little technical, but I'll keep it as short as possible. It's a direct relationship between FieldGuide9 and each participant, saying that everybody has informed consent. We very much uh, talk about everything that's going to happen and what are known ramifications or feelings or things that can happen. And people sign and say this is what they're doing of their own free will, if you will. And so that's FieldGuide9 and participants. We also make it incredibly clear that this is not recreational. It's very powerful. It's considered a sacrament. We have a religious designation, and it doesn't mean that we are in a particular established religion, except that we believe that this is a very spiritual and important event that we hold with reverence. The second component of who we are is we have a religious designation to say that ayahuasca in particular is something that we use within a spiritual community. And as much as possible, and that has gone to the Supreme Court, that can be defended.
Uh,
But that does not mean it's easy. And it
yeah.
does not mean like we, it's just, I think it's not the same, but it's almost very similar. Cannabis, for example, in the United States is not federally legal. I think people are surprised that it's still illegal, but we feel so incredibly strong about what we're doing and the safety protocols that we have in place and how we hold it directly from the Shipibo, and that it's very defensible. And so that's what we do.
Do you have you faced, I guess, over the 3 years, is there a constant external pressure kind of probing those defenses, or once you've gotten set up and learned how to run within those confines, has that been smooth sailing?
Well, it's been smooth sailing, and I have to knock on wood to say that. I think that there's um, for drug enforcement agencies, we have enormous issues in this country, as I'm sure you know, with fentanyl and everything else, that opioids, and that are actually killing people. It's incredibly
Yeah.
big issue. And I think our federal, state, and local governments realize there's absolutely a fundamental difference between people that are trying to smuggle fentanyl in with the addiction and death that comes with it, as opposed to someone who's has the juice of a plant.
Helping 6 people at a time
I
instead
know,
of
like who
fentanyl
would,
takes 2 milligrams
yeah,
to kill somebody.
right,
Yeah.
right. And that we would have people who would uh, test. So this is the thing. The you have to have a sincere belief in protocol. We have to be working in a place in which we keep people safe. And that's a paramount condition, that the government doesn't interfere. And we haven't even come close to having any medical condition with anyone. And like I said, we had an 85-year-old sit with us. Now, he had a wonderful experience. I have to say, I kept wondering, could he just die of natural causes?
Just like while it's happening, like he's like, you know
Like
what,
he
I'm
was,
dead now.
yeah, like I was going to die anyway. And then everybody would say it was ayahuasca, which it
Yeah.
wasn't. But it is a kind of funny story, because he, in his suite, his roommate kept like waking him up to make sure he was okay. And if he took a nap, someone would walk by and say, "Bill, how you doing?" At the end of it, he said it was the most remarkable experience of his entire life, blah, blah, blah. But everybody kept waking him up.
He's just in his hibernation phase of life, I guess.
He's like, I couldn't sleep. I'm gonna go home, take a nap.
That's funny. Well, what else? What's it been like running this venture with your son?
I would say would never have imagined this 5, 6 years ago. He was he was on his way in medical school. He actually got introduced to ayahuasca through a medical doctor, and we both came to it about the same time, him a little bit before me. And I find it heartening that people see that a family, a mother and a son, can run something highly effective with a lot of heart and caring. And his focus is very, very much in Peru. He goes to Peru all the time. He helps support the center where he's being trained and the practitioners who have graduated from that. And we both are highly dedicated. I would say my wish for people is that our relationships within our families are stronger. And we have any number of people tell us that when they see us working together, it gives them a lot of hope.
Yeah. Well, that's special. It's also, I mean, it's a very, it's not, you guys aren't running a coffee shop together. You're running something with a very deep intent behind it and with very meaningful, like, resonating experiences that will change people's lives. Obviously, I mean, you've said that it has changed people's lives coming through there. And so it's almost like, I'm guessing even for that 85-year-old man, that was probably a formative experience for him. And so I think seeing it in that light on top of everything else, and it can't be stress free. No venture like that ever is. So I think all of that coming together is so much more. I feel like it hones the impression that everyone is getting just down to such a fine point. Like, it has to. It's so acute. It's very. It's obviously unique. I've never heard of anything like this before.
Yeah, Zach, I would say it is the most gratifying thing I've ever done and is the most difficult. And what is so difficult is for me personally to see how much pain and hurt and trauma people carry. And that's, I'm incredibly grateful that we have this and we see that it works. Yet seeing people face some of their deepest existential pain is not easy. I think you mentioned someone that had been on the show who lost a child. We, a year ago, had a woman whose son, who was just about the same age as my son who was killed, and she came. And Zach, none of this is done in isolation. When people feel their trauma, their grief, their pain, we all feel it. And then we also feel love and gratitude, but enjoy. Yet it only reinforces that this is needed. Because Zach, thank God you are with us, but there are so many people who are not. You know this, that there's people who do kill themselves. So there's people who never come off of substances. There's people who feel mistakenly that they're alone and there isn't something for them, that it's so untrue. And we can see the ripple effect of this, because there isn't a person who's ever come with us who hasn't referred us to people in their lives. Not one. So
Yeah, it's interesting because I talk about this all the time. I do a lot of speaking and then also on here or other podcasts that I go on as a guest of this. And I'd never thought about it until right now. So, or I guess it being applied to addiction or other areas. Like I talk about it in the context of suicide specifically. Like you fall into believing a lie that the place that you're in is inescapable, right? That is fundamentally what that is. And you talked about that a suicide being someone's final attempt to protect themselves, which is essentially, okay, this is the way that I have to shut off this pain that seems inescapable. That is the one escape that I see, even though it's not an escape and there are other ways out. That's what people don't see. And I think, there's probably lies that lead to that belief in the first place that start getting you down that path of depression. But, you just saying that now, like, I think that's probably a very core part of a lot of people's addictions is that those things that they are running from might be rooted in other lies that they believe about themselves. And I think that in an effort like what you're doing and your team being able to shoulder the burdens of others, because this is the other thing that I talk about is there are so many people out there that want to help you and would drop everything as soon as they knew that you need help in order to help you. But they can't do anything until they know that you need it. So people seeing that and you guys doing this together and knowing, hey, these are total strangers, not just you and your team, but the other people that are here going through this with me. And then probably that recognition being applied to the same strangers that they end up in these Zoom calls with, 6 months down the road. Like that is so important for people to see. And just that people as a whole, even you may not have someone in your personal life that you trust to speak about with these things that you're struggling about, but like there are just people are generally good. And there are so many people out there with a positive intent in the world, but we don't see it because it gets buried under what's the sensational in media and things like that. That I'm so glad that you're out here actually sharing what you guys are doing. Instead of obviously the work itself is very important, but just hearing these messages, I think are just as important for people.
right. Thank you. I think what is absolutely incredible is that within the groups of 6, people see the commonality. It
Mm,
doesn't make any sense. We'll have a Hollywood attorney come and a college student, completely different backgrounds, and there's so much commonality. And the other thing that I have seen, Zach, is when plant medicine does help with this, but so does our protocol of the small group, is when we start to take our defenses down. It's incredible how we can be met and that we care about people, not only because of their successes, but because of their humanity, their brokenness, because that is also where we meet. And when we can accept others, which we do, like you say, Zach, we do, they can accept that dark side that we think we have to hide in ourselves. And that might be the most powerful thing that ever happens, is we see our commonality and we live from that. So Yes.
Yeah. Well, and that's that being vulnerable, stripping away the posturing that people do in order to fit what the in the slot that they think they need to fit into in society and whatever that may be, whether it may be, pretending that they're good, pretending that they're okay, pretending that they have different beliefs than they do, or not speaking, truly about what they believe or pursuing the things that they want to do. Again, that's when you're meeting others. I feel like all it takes is that daisy chain too of like one person being vulnerable for other people. It sets the tone for other people to like know that it's okay. And it's just, I think that the fact that you guys have such small groups like that, I mean, it seems perfect for that. And I'm sure that's why you've settled on it. It's
Well,
all
that is part of our secret sauce, Zach. We only crack one person and then the whole
mm.
everybody. And it's fascinating how fast it goes
Yeah.
because we're so hungry for it. We're so deprived of it. And yeah, so
Mm.
yeah, I think Zach, you would love our process, and anytime it does call to you, we're here.
Well, honestly, yeah, as soon as you started talking about it earlier, when I commented on it, I was like, man, this is hitting me a little bit. I may have to talk to you about it. It's, yeah, I don't know. I'm in a good spot in life right now, but I'm just realizing like there's some other stuff that I still
Yeah,
have work to do on that I've been stuck on. So,
most people who come to us would say they're in a good spot, and I love that. Some people are in a tough spot. The
yeah,
people that are in a quote unquote good spot, it's they go further because they're not trying to crawl out of how deep of a hole, as you know, Zach, some
yeah,
people come into. So yeah, I think one of the things I would say is maybe everybody listening to this does not know, but ayahuasca is used, or many people sit not because they're desperate, not because their life is falling apart, but they have a deep desire to live the full potential of this life. And that's beautiful.
yeah. I've reached a point in the past year maybe of like, I think if I had to boil down at 30 years old what I think the meaning of life is, I think it's to purely to experience it to the utmost extent that you can for the good and the bad and try and, find your way through it, right? But we have all these senses. It kind of seems like we're supposed to use them to feel something. So that the fact that uh, it's scary to me also makes me want to do it. So you and I, we may have
Amen.
to talk about this, but
Well, your whole philosophy, I don't know if you've followed Alan Watts much. I mean,
I feel like I know
Alan,
the name.
yeah, so his concept, brilliant philosopher, and Alan Watts would say, you are the universe looking back onto itself. And so every
That's
experience that
heavy.
you
Wow.
listen, well, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
So why would you constrict that aperture? Why would it not be expansive? And like in the color purple, the book or the movie, she says, God gets pissed off when you don't appreciate the color purple. And I think it's all these faiths say, you're here. It's a miracle you're here. And how about we start enjoying it,
And
like
recognize it.
deeply,
Yeah.
recognize it, enjoy it. So yes.
Well, I think this is a perfect, powerful place to wrap this thing up. Unless I'm missing something, do you want to tell everyone where they can find you guys and reach out?
Right. It's super easy. FieldGuide9.com. Nine is the number, not spelled out. That's our website. Not a perfect website, I gather, but you can get a hold of us there. And or you can just email me directly at beth@fieldguide9.com. And Zach, that's the reason why it's great to have a simple name.
It all worked. We come full circle. So thank you so much.
Yeah.
This is so much fun, and I appreciate what you guys are doing. So thank you.
Thank you, Zach. I appreciate you. I appreciate you inviting me on and being open to this conversation.
And thanks everyone at home for listening to another episode of Going in Blind. I'm guessing if you stuck around past the first 5 minutes until I was able to remember that we needed to talk about ayahuasca not being a recreational drug and that this is a healing medicine that is starting to make its way back into the world, that you probably, like me, were had a certain perspective on it and then just had your mind open quite a bit with all this. So please go back and listen to this thing again and share it around. I think, again, it's always important to be exposed to things that maybe at the start of you didn't agree with, but we're all here to learn. That's the point of the show. So be a little more curious moving forward, and I will see you next week.